Are you a GLP-1 user who gets personally offended every time someone suggests that ultra-processed food might be part of the problem? Do the words food quality make you project every fear and every insecurity that you have about your own eating habits onto the person who said them? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then this video is for you. You're welcome. Hi everyone, my name is Mima. I used to be obese. I lost all of the weight through a combination of GLP-1 medication, a whole foods diet, and weightlifting. I am now an endurance cyclist training for Unbound Gravel 100 miles in Emporia, Kansas at the end of next month, and I have been off of GLP-1 medication for 6 months now. If you would like realistic structure for fat loss, maintenance, and training for strength and longevity, or training like an athlete on or off of GLP-1 medication, then you're in the right place. And welcome back to the roadmap to outlasting GLP-1s. This series exists because I genuinely believe that if you use the medication in the right way, losing access to it doesn't have to be the catastrophe that everyone is afraid of. And today's video is a live example of why that message is sorely needed and also so very, very contested. So I actually had a completely different script for this video, but unfortunately, I did it again. I argued with strangers on the internet again. Specifically, strangers on the GLP-1 subreddits. I know. I really should stop wasting my time on this. I should stop wasting my time arguing with strangers on the internet. But on the bright side, the thread that I got involved in actually fit the topic that I wanted to talk about for this, second episode of this series, the roadmap to outlasting GLP-1s. So I am gonna make lemonade out of lemons, and let's walk through this conversation, shall we? The title of the original post is Experience Since Off Zepbound. My insurance cut out in March, and my new insurance company doesn't cover Zepbound anymore. So, about a month and a half without Zepbound injections. No one seems to get it, but you aren't overweight. You don't need it. But I am so afraid of gaining the weight back. And I'll be honest, the food noise coming back is so loud and anxiety-inducing. My weight has remained stable around where I'd like it to be, but I got very used to eating smaller, protein-packed meals because I wasn't hungry. I was able to change my diet effectively without feeling shame when I occasionally went out for fast food or had junk food. I'm just wondering if anyone else feels like this after going off Zep. I never thought like this before Zepbound, but I think it's very reasonable to be concerned with studies stating maintenance dose is crucial for success. This person's starting weight was 170-ish pounds, goal weight is 120, current weight is 115 pounds, and their height is 5'3", which is my height. Now, the OP is scared, which is unsurprising. The food noise is back, it's loud, and it sounds like she is bracing herself for weight gain, for like everything to fall apart. But if you read the post again, she has been maintaining her weight and she knows exactly why. It's here in the post. She has gotten used to eating smaller meals and the meals are protein packed. She changed her diet while on the meds and it looks like the change is holding. She really doesn't fully see it yet, and she has come to Reddit to expect someone to confirm her worst fears. But again, if you read it, she already did the thing. The thing that I always say on this channel. She used the window of being on the meds to change her eating habits for the better without even realizing that that was what she was doing. And of course, with these subreddits that are focused on specific GLP-1 medications, they're like not really even talking about that. They're not talking about the way that she's changed her eating habits. Except for me, of course, which leads us to my comment. We basically have the same stats. 35 female, 5'3", starting weight was 185, current weight is 120 to 125. I have been off of Zepbound for 6 months now. I'm going to be really blunt and say if you go back to the habits that put the weight on in the first place, it will come back. But you're already doing the most important thing right. You changed how you eat. Do not let that slip. Keep your diet primarily whole foods, make sure every meal is built around protein and fiber, and track your food closely, especially now that the medication isn't suppressing your appetite for you. Tracking keeps you honest when the food noise gets loud and your hunger signals are less reliable. The difference between protein and fiber-packed whole food meals and ultra-processed food isn't just calories. It's how long you stay full, how stable your blood sugar is, and how loud the food noise gets. You've already experienced what eating well feels like. That knowledge is yours to keep and keep up. Keep doing what you're doing and don't let fear push you back toward old patterns. That comment sounded practical, right? And specific. Something based on what had been actually working for me and what I'd been sharing with all of you guys since I started this channel. And more importantly, my comment actually responded to what OP was asking for. But then this Redditor responded to my comment. I don't think this is a fair thing to say to someone. If you yourself had been able to eat right, quotes, then you wouldn't have needed ZEP in the first place, and I'm sure you had plenty of thinner people say this same thing to you. Please don't become one of them. I have a friend who needed to stop taking the drug and it somehow stayed in her system for several months. One day she woke up starving. Let's please not lecture people about self-control. Okay, I want to be fair here. This response represents something that I know a lot of people genuinely feel and I think deserves a real answer. The phrase, just eat right, I think has been weaponized against overweight and obese people for decades. And so I genuinely understand why those words trigger a reaction. Because, when you've spent years being told that your weight is a character flaw, any conversation about what you're eating can feel like an attack. But I also want to say something that I don't think gets said easily enough in these kinds of spaces. And that is a huge part of why this is so hard and why denial runs so deep is that we live in a food environment that is actively working against us, especially here in the United States. Ultra-processed food is absolutely everywhere. It's cheap, it's convenient, it's heavily marketed. It lines every checkout aisle, every vending machine, every drive-through within a 2-mile radius of wherever you are in the United States right now. It has been so normalized to the point where most people don't even register ultra-processed food as a problem. And this is what researchers call an obesogenic environment. A food landscape so thoroughly engineered towards overconsumption that making different choices require active, deliberate, energy, and time-consuming effort every single day. It's not a level playing field, and it never has been. So when I talk about denial, I'm not saying that people are choosing to be blind. I am saying that this food environment that we live in has made ultra-processed foods invisible. It is the water that we swim in. And when something is that normalized, it is genuinely very difficult to kind of step back and see clearly what is happening right in front of your face. And you can see that happening in this thread specifically. Because even for accounting for all of that, this is exactly the denial pattern I am talking about. In my response to the original poster, I never used the phrase, just eat right. I said, eat well. And I was very specific about what eat well means. Whole foods, protein, fiber, and tracking. I didn't say anything about willpower, didn't even mention the word. I didn't even say anything about self-control, didn't even mention the term. I put forward a practical, biological framework for maintaining the weight loss without the medication. And instead of engaging with that, this other commenter reframed it as a lecture about self-control. She read food quality matters and translated that into you just need more discipline. That is not a misunderstanding because I was very clear. That is a defense mechanism. And I see it constantly in this GLP-1 spaces. The idea that ultra-processed food is a significant part of the problem, not a willpower problem, not a biological problem, but a significant part of the systemic problem of an obesogenic environment, it is genuinely threatening to someone who is still eating a lot of it. It is easier to reframe that conversation as moralizing than to sit with what it might mean for your own choices. And I'm really not saying that to be harsh. I'm saying it because I did the exact same thing before I really understood the science. And of course, she responds to me again. For most people, it's about quantity and not quality. You can eat the right foods, but if you eat too many of them, you become overweight. I get that you mean well, but this only serves to make people feel guilty if they do everything right but no longer have the support of the drug. I'm sorry that you felt you needed to downvote me about it, but I stand by this comment. This is where I have to be direct because this is not just an opinion. This is a science question, and science has a very, very clear answer to this. And that answer is quantity and quality are not separate variables. And before I get into my response to this particular comment, I do want to acknowledge something. The reason that so many people default to this quantity, not quality argument is partly because of the food environment that we just talked about. When ultra-processed food becomes the norm, when it's what people eat most of the time, it becomes sort of this invisible baseline. And if you can't see it as a problem, then your only remaining explanation for overeating is personal failure, lack of control, eating too much. The food industry has spent billions, if not trillions of dollars making sure you land to that conclusion. Because the moment that you start questioning the food itself, then their entire business model is in trouble. Ultra-processed food are specifically engineered to disrupt your satiety signals. And I have said that so many times on this channel. They are designed by food scientists with enormous resources tested on humans to make you eat past your own fullness. They are designed to override your body's natural stop signals. That is not a theory. That is their business model. And it operates in an obesogenic environment that makes these foods the path of least resistance at every single turn. With that said, I respond, quantity and quality aren't separate variables. Ultra-processed foods are specifically designed to disrupt satiety signals and drive overconsumption. You don't overeat grilled chicken and broccoli. The quantity problem is largely a quality problem in disguise. This is backed by research. The NIH has conducted controlled trials showing people consume significantly more calories on ultra-processed diets even when whole food alternatives are freely available. I highly encourage you to look into the science because the framing of your position is outdated. And this quantity, not quality argument is not just outdated, it's honestly backwards. And it's backwards in a way that conveniently lets the food environment off the hook and puts all the blame back on the individual. Because if you fix the quality of the food, then the quantity of the food largely takes care of itself. And this is exactly why denial is so costly. Because if you believe that it's just about eating less, the medication is doing that for you right now. So you don't change what you eat, you just eat less of the same things. But the moment the medication stops working or you somehow lose access to it, everything comes back because nothing actually changed. So let me tell you what I actually mean when I talk about food quality, because this is not about being perfect. And it's not about pretending that the food environment isn't stacked up against you, because it is. You have to fight it every single day. This is about building a framework that is strong enough to hold up inside of that environment. And this framework has 3 layers. 3 layers that you can actually live with on the medication, off the medication, and everything in between. Every meal has to start with protein. Not ends with it, starts with it. Before you think about anything else on your plate, think about what is your protein source. And this is not about hitting a perfect macro split. It is about making protein the non-negotiable foundation that everything else is built around. Aim for at least 75 grams per day spread across your meals. 100 grams if you can swing it on the meds. Eggs, Greek yogurt, chicken, fish, cottage cheese, legumes. Find the sources of protein that you actually enjoy and rotate them. This has to be sustainable. If you hate what you're eating, it won't last. And here's why this matters beyond the numbers. When you anchor every meal with protein, you are crowding out the things that aren't serving you. You are not restricting, you are replacing. And that is a fundamentally different mindset. I am not going to tell you to never eat ultra-processed food ever again. That's not realistic, and that's not what I do. And I am certainly not going to pretend it's easy to avoid in a food environment that puts it in front of you at every single turn. What I will tell you is to start crowding it out. More whole foods, more things that come from the ground, from the sea, or an animal. More things that your great-great-grandmother would recognize as food. And it's not because of a moral rule. None of this is about morals. It's because, as we just established, real food works with your satiety signals instead of against them. It keeps you fuller longer. It keeps the food noise quieter. And over time, I promise you this, over time, as you eat more of it, the pull of processed food will genuinely start to weaken because your body will start to remember what it actually feels like to be properly nourished. Think of it as learning how to eat again, learning how to eat from scratch. A lot of us have spent years, even decades, eating in ways that have been driven by this crazy food environment that was never actually designed with our health in mind. And GLP-1s, as it did for me, it gives you this amazing opportunity to press reset, quiet the food noise, erase the urgency. So use that space. Use that space to rebuild your relationship with food from the ground up. Use it deliberately, use it intentionally, use it in a way that the food environment has never made easy before. And this is very gradual. It's a gradual shift, it's not an overnight overhaul. So you start by making at least one meal a day as whole as possible, and then do 2, and then do 3. Build from there. Now, this is the mindset layer. And this is also where the denial piece comes full circle. Start by asking yourself before every meal, am I fueling my body right now, or am I eating for another reason? And it's not to judge yourself, it's just to notice. It's just a data point. Because the food environment, as we have talked about, is designed to keep you unconscious, to keep you grabbing and reaching and consuming on autopilot. And that awareness, that honest look at what you're actually eating and why you're eating that, and that is an act of resistance against a system that has been built to make you do the opposite. The GLP-1 medication is quieting the noise right now. That means this is the easiest it's ever going to be to look clearly at what you're eating, why you're eating it, and what you actually want to change. Use that window. Be honest with yourself while it's easier to be honest with yourself. Because that honesty is the skill that keeps the weight off after the medication is gone. It's not going to be willpower. It's not going to be restriction. It's going to be honest awareness of what you're doing. Honest awareness inside an environment that would rather you never develop it. But of course, as internet exchanges go, that was not the end of it. Here is their final comment. Yes, I know how to read trial data. I think you're missing my point about telling others that they can only eat the right things on their own, that they don't need the support of a GLP-1. The data would disagree with you. I have looked at your post history, so I now understand that this is what you stand for here, and so you feel the need to triple down on this. I am only here to reiterate to others that they needn't feel inadequate if they can't do this without the support. I have said all I can say on this, but I do hope you think a little about the message you may be sending. And here is what I said. I never said people don't need the support of a GLP-1. And you guys know this, I am the biggest advocate for these medications. I never said people should be able to do this without medication. Read my comment again. The OP is already off the drug and asked for advice on maintaining. I gave her practical tools that are working for me in the same situation. That's the entire context. You're responding to a position I don't hold and have never expressed. If you've read my post history and still landed here, then you're projecting, because anyone who actually reads what I share knows it's specifically for people who find themselves without access to the medication, whether by choice or circumstance. That's harm reduction, something sorely needed given the state of healthcare in the United States. What I do on this channel and the content that I make is harm reduction. Because if for some reason you have been living under a rock in this modern day and age, here is the reality, especially in the United States. People lose access to medication. Any medication. All the time. Insurance changes, coverage disappears, people lose their jobs, etc., etc. And even then, if you're still on the medication, sometimes the medication stops being effective, or sometimes life happens. So if your entire maintenance strategy depends on a prescription that you might not always have, or you might just reach the end of like the limit or the dose of, then that is a fragile plan. And this is why this series exists, the roadmap to outlasting GLP-1s, because I want to make that plan less fragile. I am not here to tell people that they don't need the medication. I don't think I have ever said that. I am here, and this channel exists, and the content that I make exists, is here to make sure that if the medication ever goes away, you are not going back to square one. Which brings me back to the original post. She lost access to the medication unexpectedly. She's scared, the food noise is back, but her weight has stayed stable. And she doesn't fully understand why, but I do. It's because while she was on the medication, she didn't stay in denial. She used the window. She changed how she ate. She built protein-packed meals into her routine without calling it a habit. It just became how she ate. She got honest with herself while it was easier to be honest. And now, a month and a half off of the medication, that foundation is still holding for her. Protein, food quality, eating to fuel your body. She built all three without even realizing that she was doing it. And again, that is the whole point of this series. That is what I want for every single person who ever comes across any of my videos. Again, and I'm sorry to say this over and over again, but people do have to hear it over and over again. The medication gives you a window, a quieter, more manageable period where real change is actually possible. What you build in that window and how honest you're willing to be with yourself while you're inside of it is what is going to determine whether this works for the rest of your life. So don't waste it. Next episode of this series, we are going deep on ultra-processed foods specifically, what they actually are, what they're doing inside your body, and why it's so hard to walk away from them even when you know better. It directly connects to everything that we have just talked about today. So if you don't want to miss that next episode, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, hit the notification bell, all of the YouTube-y things. And I want to know in the comment section down below, have you caught yourself in denial? Have you told yourself that you're eating fine even when you know deep down inside that something really needs to change? No judgment. This is about moving past that. Tell me in the comment section down below. You can also tell me on my Instagram by sending me a message. Here is my handle. I am there in between episodes posting about my food, my day-to-day life, my training on the bike, all of that stuff in between. I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, happy riding.